you can sync the digital marketing efforts before they ever set sail for your church plant, mission plant, or satellite location for your church. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to set your church plant, mission plant, or satellite location up for digital marketing success. My name is Chris Jackson, but many people call me the SEO Priest, and I help churches with their digital marketing, especially with their local search engine optimization. Today we're going to be going over the very first steps that you need to do with the digital marketing footprint of your church plant, your mission plant, your satellite. But if you are an established congregation, this checklist that we're going to be going over is good for you to review as well, because the likelihood is that you don't have everything in place in the way that it should. So here's what we're going to cover in this episode. We're going to cover establishing a digital marketing base and also getting some of the first leads for your church plant, mission plant, or satellite location. Now, for these show notes, please navigate to churchseo.io/newsletter. Sign up to the Church SEO Shape Up newsletter, and you'll also get access to all of my free resources that way. Also, please like and subscribe the video to help spread the love. So why do this? First of all, your church's online presence is absolutely critical. I have a friend who works in the RV business, and he just really could not get the online aspect of RV sales down. He had to go out of business because of it. And what he was finding is that RV customers, they were making all of the decisions before even stepping in the door of any dealership. They already had decided what model they want. They had decided what price they wanted to pay. And all that was in place before they even stepped foot in the dealership. Stepping foot in the dealership was really the final step in the process. So if we talk about churches, I've found that to be the case myself with churches, that people who show up in your doors, usually that's the last step, and they've pretty much made up their minds that that's going to be their church. So how are they finding that out? They're finding that out by your online presence. Then as well, decisions that you make early on can be either extremely helpful or extremely hurtful. So search engine optimization, which is the main of what we're going to be talking about here today. Search engine optimization, it's a process that takes 6 to 9 months for the full effects of what you do to help you to bubble up in Google. So by doing things wrong, you're not just wasting 10, 20 minutes of your time when you're setting up a profile. You're wasting 6 to 9 months that you could have to make progress online. So here is your digital marketing checklist. The very first thing is that you need to determine your primary locale. Typically, I encourage churches to think bigger rather than smaller. Let's say that you're a church in Maplewood, Missouri. Maplewood is an inner ring suburb of St. Louis, Missouri. Probably you want to target all of St. Louis. There's a very good chance that you can have a good digital marketing presence for the entirety of that region. But on the other hand, let's say that you are a St. Louis-based congregation and you're starting up a new satellite in Maplewood. So since you've probably already optimized your main church for St. Louis, you're going to optimize that satellite's presence for a hyper-local one. You're going to optimize it for Maplewood in particular. Then you need to determine your marketing name. So your marketing name, it's not your legal name. It's not even the colloquial name that everybody calls you, but instead this is going to be the name that's going to give you the best chance to show up for the locale that you have targeted. So for example, I believe that my church's legal name is St. Peter's Evangelical Lutheran Church Incorporated. And nobody ever uses that except on legal documents. Colloquially, people just know us as St. Peter's Lutheran Church, or they might know us as St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Forestville. But for marketing purposes, Forestville is a village of 480 people. So I'm targeting a much larger area. I am in Door County, Wisconsin, and this is not the case for most places, but people actually search for Door County. So they search for Door County churches, for example. So for my marketing name, I have been targeting Door County, and so I call it St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Door County. That's how we set up all of our online profiles and so on. Then you need to determine a URL. So this is going to be different for every church. So if you're a plant, like if the idea is that you are going to be your own independent congregation, then you're going to want your own domain name. Now for a domain name, two critical things. You have to include your primary locale. So let's say that you are a church plant and you are targeting Duluth. You're going to maybe call yourself Faith Duluth .church. And .church domain names, they work really well because they get the word church in your domain name, and that is a ranking factor. It helps give Google confidence that you are a church. And if you put your locale in there, it gives them confidence that you are a church in that locale, and that greater confidence means that they're going to recommend you to more people. You need to check for confusing or unintended spellings, so you don't want to have doubled up letters, unintended spellings. Not going to go into that. Just be very careful about that. Then, check your domain name that you are looking for on the backlink checker of a service called Ahrefs. It's very possible that somebody had your domain name before, and that's okay. And in some cases, that can actually be good. That's not a deal breaker. But what is a deal breaker is if people have spammed that domain with bad links to help build up the SEO power. So you're going to go to the backlink checker. You're going to enter in the domain name that you want. And if you see lots of weird languages there, like Chinese and Russian, I hate to say it, are some of the primary offenders here. If you see lots of things mentioning like dating and casino and gambling and things like this, stay away from that domain name. Go find something else. Then as well, you want to check it on the Wayback Machine on the Internet Archive. So if you go back on the Internet Archive, you can put that domain name in there. And if somebody else had a website on the domain name, you can check it out. So I'm not super concerned about every website that's going to be on there. But again, if this is a website that was adult in nature or casino related or anything like that, you're just going to want to stay away from it. Now for satellites and multi-sites, it's a much more simple thing. You're going to want a subdirectory. So on your main domain with a / with the place name. So let's say you're a St. Louis-based church. You're going to have your URL be mainsite.church / Maplewood. Next, you're going to get an email address, and the email address is critical because this is going to be your central one to sign up for your various profiles and so on. It shouldn't be your own personal one, but rather something you can hand off to somebody, pass off to somebody. And branded is preferred through Google Workspace, for example. And Google Workspace is ideal because it helps you to potentially get your Google business profile verified in time. If you do qualify for the Google Nonprofits program, it's completely free, by the way. You can get absolutely free email through Google Workspace through the Google Nonprofits program. And if you don't qualify for that yet, for whatever reason, you can just buy a Google Workspace plan. You should have this. Look, it's $16 a month or something like this. And just, it's your tax for being a legitimate organization. Do that. If you really don't want to set up a Google Workspace one way or the other, You can do unbranded, for example, at gmail.com or at outlook.com. That is okay. And then you're going to use this to sign up for your various other services. Next, you're going to secure a phone number. You might be saying to yourself, Pastor Chris, this is 2025 when I'm recording this. A phone number at this late stage in the game? Absolutely, 100%. Your phone number is utterly foundational. And just quite frankly, Google is not going to trust you unless you have a phone number. And people want to get in contact with you. I've had lawyers get in contact with my church for good reasons to give us a big bequest, for example. And they were doing that via phone number. You need a phone number. You don't know who might be wanting to call you, a prospective member, somebody who wants to help fund your mission. You got to get a phone number. But don't go get a landline. These things are terribly expensive. I mean, I think a landline these days is like $200 a month. For a standard business phone line in a lot of cases. So what you're going to do is you're going to go get an online phone number, a virtual phone number through a service like Grasshopper, OpenPhone, or RingCentral. Now, there are a lot of services out there that want to sell you subpar phone numbers. You want to avoid that. You want something that has really good phone numbers that haven't been spammed to death. You want to really take your time with this. You might even want to get on the phone with these services about selecting a phone number to make sure that they're only offering high quality phone numbers that can be used to verify a Google business profile. And then Google the number to see if anything sketchy comes up, if anybody has used it for any nefarious purposes. These are cheap. I think they're like $15 a month or something like this. Then, if possible, and as soon as possible, get a physical address. And by a physical address, I mean where you will be meeting. Now, there might be a point in time in your church's life where you're not going to have that hotel conference room, or you're not going to have that space at a storefront or whatever it is. And you might be just going from home to home. That's okay for a while. But as soon as you can get a physical address, that's going to help your digital marketing a great bit, because most churches for searches are local. So having a place that Google can send to people is critical. So this should be not like where your office space is or whatever, but where you're going to be meeting from, like Sunday to Sunday or Wednesday to Wednesday, or whenever you're worshiping or meeting for Bible study or whatever that is. Ideally, you're going to get something on paper from that institution because, for example, when you go to verify your Google business profile, that can help you to have that documentation to show to Google, look, we are an actual renter at this location. You're going to set up a web page on whatever URL you have selected, whether that's your own domain name or if that's a subdomain on the main church domain. So you're going to want to make sure that this is search engine optimized. Now, I have a great checklist for search engine optimization for churches. If you go to churchseo.io/checklist, you can get that checklist for absolutely free. And it will give you the exact, I believe it's 52 steps I've got there to make sure that everything is SEO optimized from your Google business profile to your website. Also, you want to set up your page, especially in the beginning, for leads. So people who might be interested in joining you in this process. So you're going to be aiming for form submissions, emails, and phone calls. Now, as your church begins to grow, I would probably re-optimize the conversion that you're optimizing for from leads to just paying you a visit. But especially early on, you want to gather people around you who are committed to what you're up to. And so optimize it to get the contact information of those peoples. So For the web page, I really like Card for a simple one-page website. You want to spin this up fast. You want it out there as soon as possible. Card makes great one-page websites that you can use in order to do that. And if you need help with that, that's something that I do offer. Reach out and we can help you set up your one-page website. So you as well want to make sure that you have your name and your address and your phone number on that web page, whether that's your own domain or the subdomain of the church. And you want to make sure that it has 100% parity to the name that you selected already, actual address and your actual phone number, and then link to your socials. Speaking of socials, you may not have those yet. Go ahead and grab your socials. The two that I'd really be looking at are your Facebook page and your Instagram page. Biggest reason is because those are what you're going to use to run meta ads a little bit later on. Now, for your socials, I really wouldn't worry about doing a ton with these. I would just put some ways to promote your church online. So make sure that you've got enough there that like Google looks at your socials and says, yeah, we understand that this is a legitimate organization that's doing legitimate things. And that's really the most important thing you can be doing with your socials at this point. So make sure that your name and your address and your phone number are on your profiles of your socials, and that once again, you're maintaining 100% parity, everything one to another, that everything is matching up. And then as well, link to your URL, whether that's your web page on the main church site or your own domain name if you're a church plant or a mission plant. Now, your next step, this is only if you have a physical address. You're going to do directory citations. So there's a lot of directories on the internet, and this is a great way to help Google understand that you are a legitimate organization with a legitimate address and a legitimate phone number, so that if they send someone to your address, they know that there's actually a church there, so that if they send a phone call to you, they know that somebody is actually there answering phone calls. Wait to do the citations until you have a physical address. Don't do the citations until then. You're just going to be wasting your time. And I usually like to shoot for about 50. Now that can seem a little bit overwhelming because each one of these probably takes about 20 minutes to set up. If you need help with that, reach out. We can certainly help with that here at my agency, churchseo.io. And make sure you store your information so that if you move, and if you are a church plant, there's a high likelihood you're going to be moving in the near future, 6 months, a year, 2 years, so that you can get those changed. Again, make sure that you keep your name and your address and your phone number 100% consistent. Then you need to start getting online mentions of your church plant or your satellite or whatever it is. So this can be from your church body, from sister churches in the area, from other local businesses. And then as well, make sure that all of these online mentions as well have a consistent NAP and that they also link to your web page. Next, you want to distribute a press release. Press releases are hyper old school, but if you look at this, you'll notice most of this is super old school. So having a name, like it doesn't get much older than that. Email, it's this legacy technology at this point. A website is a legacy technology at this point. Phone number, I mean, this is going all the way back to Alexander Graham Bell. This is a legacy technology. So legacy technology and legacy outlets are good. They're some of the most powerful that are out there. I see a lot of people sleeping on press releases, but this is the absolute one of the most powerful forms of marketing your church can have. And yes, a press release does more for your digital marketing than almost anything else. So I do have a video on press releases. I'm going to link it here. And so go check out my video on press releases. You're going to want to get this out to local outlets, a press release gig. Again, make sure your name and your address and your phone number is on there. And then as well, make sure there's a link to your web page. Now, once you've done all of this, once you have a web page up and it looks legitimate and it's been up for maybe about a month, once you've got a phone number up and it's been up for about a month, you've got socials with your name, your address, and your phone number on there, and your website. You've gotten some online mentions, and as well, you've sent out a press release. Hopefully, at this point, Google has begun to recognize you as a legitimate entity. And it's possible that they have already built a Google business profile for you. So you're going to want to go check that. Maybe they've already done that. But if they haven't done that, go and you can add a place on Google, and you can add your own church there. So go and start your Google business profile at this point. Now, getting new Google business profiles on Google and getting them verified can be tricky. But ideally, all this work that you've done up here makes you look legitimate to Google so that you can get that Google business profile verified. So once again, make sure your name and your address and your phone number is entirely consistent with everything else that you've been putting out online. Now, if you don't have a physical location, a service area business is okay for a while. So ideally, you need to have a location. You can change it to a location later on, but start out, if you don't have a location, as a service area business, and make that change later on. Now, your Google business profile is your absolute most important online asset, and especially in the age of AI. AI loves Google business profiles. So you want to make sure that your Google business profile is search engine optimized. Once again, my checklist at churchseo.io/checklist is a great way to do that. And then make sure that it's just completely fully filled out. Finally, I would run a meta landing views campaign. So I did make a video. I'm going to add a link here on the show notes to my previous video on doing a meta landing page campaign. And basically, I would optimize this so that it's targeting areas around the church and also places that people might be moving to that area from. So a lot of new developments, for example, are targeting people from one area to come live out in this other area. So targeting people that in that area where people are moving from as well can be a really handy thing. Now, you can potentially spend hundreds of dollars on a meta landing page views campaign, and don't expect a deluge of landing page views, and don't expect a deluge of conversions in terms of people signing up and expressing their interest on your landing page. But keep in mind that even 1 or 2 leads can be incredibly powerful. So let's say from this whole stuff you've gotten, that in your first 6 months, you've gotten 2 leads to your church. That may be 2 young families that are going to raise up a bunch of kids in your church. It's an opportunity for you to do baptisms, confirmations, first communions. These are people who are going to be praying for your church and monetarily supporting your church for decades to come. So spending hundreds, even thousands of dollars for a few leads, completely worth it. I'm Chris Jackson, the SEO Priest. It's been a pleasure to serve you. God bless.